Zion, yeah. So when we get it, we're on top of Zion. Okay, so we spoke about the. I forgot the sugi before. That's the. Look back a second on Ted Zion. What was it about? Just have to see the Gemara without moving the screen. Oh, we had about if you had boards that were big, wide boards, and that was the sugya on Daf Yudalet about Gzeres Tikra. Maybe it looks too similar to his regular house. That was one sugya, and then Tezvav, we had the sugya about if it was really made for a house, how could you undo that problem? We had about the apostles. Shpudin and the Gemara went into a side point about Paras Chomed, not a side point, how much kosher schach do you need in contrast to kosher schach? Half is good enough. And then went a little bit into Tumah V'Tara, that the Ruchas Amita could sometimes be Tumah, but the facts are that even if it is not the Kabul Tumah anymore, if it once was, so it's also an apostle for schach. We had the din of Chotet that 7 tvachim, if you had a halal 7 tvachim, then it's good enough. And then you could, 7 by 7 with a halal of 1 tefach is good enough. We mentioned on Friday, just to mention the problem that I was wondering where the post can get this halacha that you have to have walls before the schach, and I didn't see it in the Gemara. So I noticed after we learned on Friday, so I just took a look, and I did see that if you want to have the air conditioner, that's fine, whatever's good for you. But I saw that the Bach asked the kasha. The Bach says he doesn't see any place in the Gemara where you have to have that there should be walls. You do have to have a halal tefa, but not that you have to have walls, and he doesn't understand where the
for the making of it. But afterwards, you do have to have walls.
Surely you have to have walls, but the Shulchan Aruch says, the Ramah says that the walls have to be before the schach, at least 1 tefach height of the walls. And we didn't understand where we got it from in the Gemara. The Gemara doesn't say so. The Gemara says you have to have a height of the schach, should be a halal, in order to be considered an ohel. But it didn't say that you have to have the walls. So he says, Hitaka doesn't know where the Hagos Maimoni, who's the author of that, we get it from. But and therefore he says it's a chumrah and it's fine. If you don't have to. It seems just a chumrah ba'alma. But Taz says that it is important, and the post can do go like that. But they say the source is not from this Gemara. The source is from Gemara by Shabbos. That's not considered an ohel only if it has walls also. So the din might be true, but not from this Gemara.
Wall of 10 tefachim?
No, you have to have a wall. Surely you have to have a wall of 10 tefachim. But does it have to be before the schach when you're building the sukkah? So in our Gemara it doesn't say so. It seems, and I didn't see anybody saying differently. But in Shabbos it says it's not called the ohel only if it has walls.
So what a wall? That's what I'm
asking. So 1 tefach wall is good enough for this halacha that it should be considered an ohel. So it could even be on top also. For that, it seems to be even good enough on top also that it should be an ohel. It doesn't seem to be dafka on the top. It's not considered. We're not talking about making an ohel that it should be considered to the bottom. It's considered an ohel in that area.
All the way around.
Yeah, 3 walls, whatever you need for sukkah. So the poskim do say to be careful to try to make, not to try, they say to make the walls before you make the schach, at least the tefach. But what we did gain is that it's not from our Gemara, a Gemara someplace else is. I saw Gemara also brings a sugya later on that also might be a source for this. But what I saw so far, I didn't see that anybody says that our Gemara is the source. It seems that Agos Maimon is getting from our Gemara, and that they say you don't see in our Gemara. Maybe there are other sources. Okay, so up to the next Mishnah, and also what do we have? The din about good asik and good achis. That's how we ended off yesterday. That we pass in like the Tanakama, the Rabbanan, that you don't say good achis, only you don't say pull the walls down, only pulling the walls up. Therefore, you have to have the walls should be within 3 tefachim of the ground. Once you add 10 tefachim altogether, even 7 and a mashu that's within the ground.
What is this case of good asik in this case?
Good asik would mean that if you have 10 tefachim walls, it's good even if the schach is much higher.
Oh, yes.
And you don't say the opposite. If they have 10 tefachim walls high up, but it's further away from the. If it's 3 tefachim, yeah, it has to be within 3 tefachim of the ground. Okay, we continue. Daf Yud Zayin, top line. Here, horizontally, not vertically. Not that the schach could be much higher than the schach, but if it's moved away horizontally from the, you have the. If you have any pictures over there, there should be a picture over there.
Yeah, but maybe because it was Shabbos, so this WhatsApp group he wasn't able to post anything, so I have no pictures here to post.
I have no pictures yet. Okay, so
I have in my book here, but it's not so easy for me to.
Right. It's hard
unless I just hold up the book or something. But
yeah, okay. So let's continue. We'll use our imagination until we get to the schach is moved away sideways, away from the wall. not higher up. Once you have 10 tefachim walls, the schach will be much higher. Not talking about higher, talking about off to the side. That imagine that you have your sukkah and you have your schach, but 3 tefachim next to the wall you took away. There's no schach from the wall to the schach sideways.
But
So-
we're talking. This is like what people have in their dining room, and they have a hole in the ceiling. Isn't that what we're talking about?
No, that's going further. You're on the second line. The first line talks about that the schach is moved away from the walls and there's no schach.
Oh, moved away. I'm sorry. Archik. Yeah.
Airspace. Imagine.
We need 4 tefachim, less than 4
That's
tefachim.
what schach.
Oh, yeah. It's not next to the wall. I see. Yeah, I was looking at the wrong picture. Okay.
Apostle and air. It's the same din.
No. Schach puzzle is going to be a bit more lenient. You can have up to 4 tefachim. But here you can't have more than 3.
Less than that.
Right. Here has to be low. So you have to have less than 3
Oh,
tefachim.
3.
So if the schach is not close to the wall, within 3 tefachim, so then you can't use that wall. That wall is not counted. So you have to have at least on 3 sides that the schach should be within 3 tefachim of the wall. That's what the Mishnah says. If you distance the schach from the walls sideways, 3 tefachim, so it's possible. Less than 3 tefachim is kosher. That's one halacha about airspace. And now the rest of the Mishnah talks about schach pasel, which everyone was mentioning. That schach pasel is more lenient, and the Mishnah is going to tell you the din on the side. All the 3 cases. The Mishnah is going to say 3 cases of the same halacha. The Gemara is going to talk about why you have to have so many cases for the same idea, and that's going to be what we call dofen akuma. That if on the side between the wall and the schach kosher is going to be schach pasel, as long as it's less than daled amos, we're going to use the bent wall law that you're allowed to consider it part of the bent wall and it's kosher. But if it's going to be less, if it's going to be daled amos, then it's too much already.
Assuming it's one of the side that's a wall, as opposed to a third wall, which is nothing.
You have to have these 3 walls.
Let's just say.
In the 4th wall, we don't care
The one
about.
that's missing is the one that doesn't have. Because let's say you have 3 walls, and the 4th wall, which is empty.
You don't need that. You don't need a 4th wall. You don't need a 4th wall. You only need 3 walls. So the 4th wall, you don't need a wall at all. On 3, you have to have at least 3 walls. On these 3 sides, even if the schach doesn't come up till the wall, you have schach pasel in between. Up to daled amos is okay, but daled amos is not good. So that's the Mishnah is going to say 3 scenarios. For that, the first one is going to be a house that, like Levi Yaakov was saying, that people have a house and they take the middle of the roof away. I don't know if people do it nowadays. They still do it nowadays. I didn't know that. Okay, so the middle of the roof they take away and they put up schach. So you have schach, but where are the walls? So if you take off the whole roof, so then fine, you have the walls of the house. But even if you don't take off the whole roof, some of the roof around is still there and its roof is schach pasel. As long as it's within daled amos, it's okay. Because we look at all that as a bent wall, which is a meter 0.92. That's almost 2 meters that you're allowed to have. That is considered.
Excuse me. I mean, it would be if it has to be less than daled amos. If it's daled amos, it's going to be puzzled, right?
Right. Once it's daled amos, it's too much. So the Mishnah gives 3 examples. The first one is going to be a house, a house that the roof caved in. It doesn't have to be caved in. It could be you took it away neatly also, but it means that you don't have the center of the roof. You put schach in that place which there's no roof. If from the wall until the schach is 4 amos, then it's possible. But we could deduce that if it's less than daled amos, it's kosher. That's one case. Another case of the same idea. You had a courtyard that had houses all around. Talk about 3 sides. You had houses on all 3 sides, and each one had an awning. Each house on 3 sides, a U shape, had an awning, and that awning is not kosher schach. And you want to make a sukkah, so you make schach over the whole courtyard, and it's leaning on the awnings on all 3 sides. So you have nice schach. Where are your walls? It's going to be the walls of the house, but the awning is separating between the schach and your wall. Again, you have a U shape of a courtyard, houses on all 3 sides, and each one has an awning in front of it, the full awning, and the schach is going to be the center of the chutzner. All the neighbors are going to come to the center. They have a schach, but where are the walls? The walls is the walls of the house. The outside walls of the house is going to be, but it's only good if the awning is going to be less than daled amos. But if the awning is going to be daled amos, then it's not good because you have no walls. Same thing. So that's right. Just another scenario for the same halacha. That's what it says. If you have a courtyard that's surrounded by an awning, we'll call it same halacha. That it depends if it's daled amos, it's not good. Less than daled amos is good. And a third case, sukkah gedolah. We had a big sukkah, very big sukkah, and around the outer part of the sukkah was schach pasel. Only the center was schach kosher. So the same thing again. If the schach pasel on the sides is daled amos, so it's not kosher because from the schach to the wall is daled amos. If it's less than daled amos, it's good. So the Mishnah said 2 halachas. The first one was about ear. Second one was about schach pasel. By ear, it said you have to have less than 3 tefachim, and if it's 3 tvachim, no difference in the middle or the side, it says that 3 tvachim is no good. The case happens to be on the side. The Mishnah says, so it's talking about the side. And even over there, you can't have more than 3, you can't have 3 tvachim. And the next 3 cases all about schach pasel. It happens to be talking about, all 3 cases happen to be talking about the side. How about the middle? How about if you have schach pasel in the middle of the sukkah? So we have to talk about that. And I just explained the Mishnah that's talking about Dofen Akuma because it's on the side, so it's considered a bent wall. But that's not so simple what I said. I said the way we're going to paskin, that's going to be true. But we'll see that in the Gemara, that's not so simple. So we have 2 halachas in the Mishnah. One about his ear, that 3 tvachim is already considered a separation.
Well, that's the most chomer of all these.
Right, ear is more chomer. And schach pasel that says that you ought to have until the Alaramas. But the Alaramas is not good. You want to know why you have to have 3 cases, the same principle. Normally, what do you need 3 cases for? It's all the same thing. The Gemara answers, it's a chiddush. Tzricha. It's necessary to have all of them. Yes, meaning by Shinif Chas Mishum Dani, Mechitzas Lavai Savidan. Aval Chas, the Mekefas Achsad, the Mechitzas Lav Achsad Ravidi, Emolo. Tzricha. The first case is the simplest case. The case of the house, the reason why over there you consider the walls, the schach, call it like a bent wall, is because when you're inside, you're under the schach, the walls were made for that direction. You're sitting in the living room, and you have schach in the middle of the roof, and those 4 walls that you're using, they were made for this direction. So when you're bending the schach, so it's a bent wall, you say that the schach is part of the bent wall. It's very nice that this is your living room, or the house doesn't make a difference. I understand it. And the walls are serving you inside in the same direction. But the case of the courtyard, if you think about it, the walls of the house were not made for the courtyard. The walls of the house were made to serve inside of the house. You're using them as you're using it for the other direction. You're using it that should be serving the sukkah, which is in the courtyard. That's not a big chiddush that you're allowed to use a wall for the other side. But now you're bending the schach, you're taking the bent wall theory, and you're going to be using this as if the wall of the house goes up and then bends towards the sukkah. That's a big chiddush because it's not natural. The way that the wall was made was for the house. The wall was made to serve the inside of the house. Now you're using it as if bending it backwards. You're bending backwards, and bending backwards is a bigger chiddush than bending forwards.
Excuse me, where in the words here do you see about inside and outside? I don't really see it.
I'll say the words. Why do you have to have all these cases? For it's necessary to have all the cases. If we say the first case of the house that the roof was taken away, because these walls were made for the house. They made to that direction.
I see, that means inside.
Right. It doesn't say the word, but that's the idea. But the courtyard, which is surrounded by an awning, those walls of the house were not made for the direction of the awning. They were made for the house. You're using it for the courtyard. You're allowed to do that. That's fine. But to say over there that you also say the bent wall, you say Dofen Akuma backwards, so to speak. So that would be a chiddush. You might think not. You might think that over there you don't say it. Tzricha, that even in that case also you can say Dofen Akuma. And you need in the third case also, Shmina and Hanitati, those 2 cases, the case of the house that the roof is taken away, or the case of the courtyard that you put the schach in the middle of the awnings, that's a smaller chiddush than the third case. Because at least the schach is a kosher material. The case of the house, the case of the roof is talking about as kosher material. That's how it was made for its whole house, for the whole year. It's made for its nears. It wasn't made for sale. And also the awnings was made the whole year round. It wasn't made for a sukkah. So that's the reason why it's good. But the case of the third case that the Mishnah says that you have a sukkah gedolah, that you used a material which is not kosher on the outside, the outer perimeter, the outer side of the big sukkah, you use material which is not good for schach. You use metal poles, whatever. So then you might think that Dofen Akum only works on, at least it should be kosher material, even though it wasn't made for schach. Okay, and it's not kosher sukkah, but that's only because it wasn't made with the right intention. It was made not for shade, it was made for other purposes. But if it's kind of material which is not kosher for schach, maybe on that you don't say Dofen Akuma, Kamash Malan, everything goes. They're all good. You might have thought differently. You might think that in the third case, where you use the material which is not a kosher schach, like metal or something, you might think over there you don't say this law of Dofen Akuma. Tzricha, all 3 cases are good. So maybe we wouldn't have thought that as a chiddush, but the Gemara says why the Mishnah found it necessary to say all these 3 cases. That's the end of the Gemara. When we learn that all these cases don't make a difference which direction it's made for, and even if it's material which is not kosher for sukkah, you still can say Dofen Akuma. As long as it's less than Daled Amos, it's okay.
Excuse me, we might think that a wall, even though a wall for a sukkah could be made out of any material, we might think that it has to be built for the sukkah, and it's not true.
Not mamish. We're talking about here the thing of Dofen Akuma, not the wall. You're talking about the second case or the third case? The case of
the third case. The third case.
The schach is which you're using as a bent wall. It's a material which is not kosher for schach. For some reason, you might think you only use the bent wall theory, Dofen Akuma, only if the material is a kosher schach. I don't know why, because we really.
I'm
should have-
sorry. No. I meant the second case where it's the Chatzer.
Right,
Those walls weren't made for a sukkah.
right. You don't
So
need it. So you don't need it, but the chiddush is that you say dofen akuma on it also. The fact if the schach would come up till the wall, then it wouldn't be a chiddush that you're allowed to use the house wall, which is made for the house. You're allowed to use it for the other side. That's not a chiddush.
oh, that's not a chiddush. Oh, only the dofen akuma part of it. Uh-huh.
That you could even bend the schach, bend the ceiling to be considered part of a continuation of the bent wall, and the wall wasn't even made for this direction. It's bending backwards, so to speak.
It belongs to the house.
Uh-huh. I
We're
see.
gonna see that it's bending backwards towards the courtyard. But
You're making it a wall. You are making it into a wall of your sukkah, so then it's going to change its form. It became
right, and as long as it's there, it's
That's
kosher.
okay.
You don't have to do anything. The fact that it's
Right,
there is enough to be
right,
used for the
right.
sukkah. So we finished the first halacha that you say that the dofen, we'll call it dofen akuma. We're going to see soon that's not so simple the way I'm explaining it. The Gemara might have a different way. But what I'm saying is true. Lamaisa is going to be true. So I'm taking the liberty to explain it that it should be simple. But we say dofen akuma, even if it's not a kosher material, even if it's made to the other direction, it's all kosher. New Gemara. So that's to point out that the dofen akuma that I said didn't say that. It didn't say over here dofen akuma. It didn't say those words. It didn't say bent wall. It didn't say the reason why it's kosher is because it's on the side. It's considered a continuation of the wall. So we started New Gemara. Amar Rabba. Rabba said, Ashkachtinu the one of the Rav. I found the Tamid Chachamim of Rav. It sounds like Rav's yeshiva. The Yasvi Vakami that they were saying. Avir postel b'shlosha, schach postel barbo. Avir means ear. Ear disqualifies the sukkah with 3 tefachim, which we had that in the Mishnah, that if it's distance from the schach 3 tefachim is no good. And no difference if it's the side or it's in the middle. And schach postel barbo. If you have schach postel, it's already a problem with 4 tefachim. That's the little rule for the rest of the Gemara. Arba'ah with a hey at the end means tefachim. Arba'ah with a hey at the end is masculine. That's
Masculine.
But if it will be arba without the hey at the end, then it's feminine, and that would be going on amos. You have tefachim and amos. So that's a rule in the whole shah. Sometimes it's a printing mistake, but usually it's not. When it's arba, it's tefachim. When it's arba amos. So he says that we spoke about arba amos till now. Till we spoke about arba amos. But here he says something about arba. Arba means tefachim. So that's 4 handbreadths. That's about 8, 16, 32 centimeters. So he says that if you have schach pasel in the middle of the sukkah, it's already a problem if it's 4 tefachim of schach pasel. That means if you can have 4 tefachim of schach pasel, it's going to be considered a separation, and you have 2 sukkahs over there, and each sukkah alone you have to look if it has 3 walls. If you have 3 walls, fine, you have 2 sukkahs, but under the schach pasel is already you can't sit over there, and you have to look at each sukkah. You have 2 sukkahs that's divided by the schach pasel in between. The schach pasel goes alongside down the sukkah, so it divides it, and you have 2 sukkahs. Each sukkah, it might be that each sukkah only has 2 walls, right? If you have 3 walls, a U, and you have a schach pasel going down, from the entrance, you have schach pasel going towards the end, towards the end side of the sukkah. So now you have 2 sukkahs. Each one only has 2 walls. So 4 tefachim already is considered a division, and it pasels the sukkah. That was the yisod that the Rabbanan and the Beit Rav said. Now the Mishnah didn't say such a thing. The Mishnah didn't mention anything about 4 tefachim. The Mishnah spoke about Dalet Amos. So that's what Rav was going to ask them. Where do you get it from? I said to them, I read the postal b'shloshim and all. Where do you know that 3 tefachim is a problem of ear? Because of our Mishnah. Because our Mishnah says, top of the page, that if the schach is distance from the walls for 3 tefachim, it's possible. That's where you got that 3 tefachim is a problem of ear. But then schach posel, the Mishnah says Dalet Amos. How do you get 4 tefachim? Schach posel nami lo lufsal arba amos. So schach posel shouldn't be a problem only if it's 4 amos. By the same Mishnah. It says amos, then it's pasula. So how come you're telling me that 4 tefachim is already a problem? The Mishnah says it's only a problem if it's Dalet Amos. You should have said that schach posel is only a problem if it's 4 amos. And they told me, bar minei dahi. Bar, in the Sfardim say bar minan, right? Bar minan means like chutz mimena, like not us. Yeah. Bar means outside. Bar mino dahi means like that's outside. That mission has nothing to do with us. Bar mino dahi. The Rav Shmuel Amitavayi mishum dofen akumen agaba. So this is what I said this mission. I said it like this the whole time. I said Rav and Shmuel, and they said the mission is different. The mission is open on the side of the sukkah. On the side of the sukkah, the reason why you have till Dalet Amos is because we say this dofen akuma, that it's considered a bent wall, and therefore if it's less than Dalet Amos, it's considered a continuation of the wall, and the sukkah doesn't start till the schach. That's why Dalet Amos is good. But what are we talking about? Not in the middle, not on the side of the sukkah, in the middle of the sukkah. That you have schach in the whole sukkah, and in the middle In the middle of the sukkah, you have schach pasel, not on the side. Now it's not going to help you anymore. Dofen akuma. Dofen akuma was only to extend the wall as if the sukkah didn't start yet. But here you want to use the schach on both sides. So how much of a separation of schach pasel will interfere and make the sukkah to be considered 2? 4 tefachim. Where does it get it from? There's no Mishnah, but they're saying 4 tefachim. We have always, many times, we have a few times already, that 4 tefachim is considered a significant space. So if you have a significant space of 4 tefachim, that's schach pasel. So that's not a good kosher. It's not kosher under the schach pasel. It's 4 tefachim already, and therefore the 2 sukkahs are separated, and you only have two walls for each one, so it's pasel.
We had what do you call it? We had a slab of more than
We had that
4.
case also, right?
More than
right,
4 is
right,
not kosher.
right,
Up to
right.
4 is good.
Another example of something that 4 tefachim is very considered significant. Over
But
there,
we had, excuse me, didn't we start out when you had 3 on the side, 3 tefachim on the side
of what? 3 tefachim on the side of what? Ear.
of the sukkah, of air.
Right. So by ear, there's no.
That's going
difference.
to be puzzle, but so then here, but in the middle, you can have more.
No. By ear, there's no difference. By ear, there's no difference on the side or on the middle. The reason why the side is more lenient by the schach pasel is because you have the dofen akuma issue, that you can say that it's continuation of the wall. So that's only if something's there. If there's ear space, it's not continuation of the wall. So by ear, there's no difference if it's on the side or it's in the middle. Once it's 3 tefachim, it's pasel. And it means that the wall is not there. The sukkah is divided into 2. It's considered a space. The sukkah is over there. And
Oh, I see this. Okay, I see. The 4 tefachim is with schach puzzle.
Pasel, right. So
I
by
see.
ear, there's no difference, even though there'll be different opinions, but to get this halacha, that ear space is, 3 tefachim is considered a break, no difference on the side or on the middle, but schach pasel depends. That if it's on the side, then you're allowed to have until Daled Amos because of dofen akuma. It's considered part of the wall. Sukkah didn't start yet. But once once the schach pasel is in the middle, then he says here that you're limited. Once it's 4 tefachim, it's considered also a separation, and you have to see on each side if you have 3 walls. If you don't, then it's not a good sukkah. That's what they say.
Right? Rabbi Yehuda, right? Rabbi Meir said
You went back to that's not our subject. That's a nice comparison to say 4 tefachim is significant, but it's not our subject at all. Over there, talking about kosher schach, and it says the board, but they made a gzeira because people might think that it's as good as the house. You do see over there as far as 4 tefachim is significant, but it's not our subject at all. We're talking about schach pasel. They're talking about schach kosher. That was a board. A board is schach kosher. It goes in the ground. It's not makabel tuma, and it's not attached. So that was a separate thing that people might come. There is tikra. You might come to use a tikra also. Here we're talking about really schach pasel, and if it's 4 tefachim, it's considered significant, then the sukkah is divided. Okay, so that was what Rabbi heard. You see, the Rabbi was a chiddush. Rabbi thought that even in the middle of the sukkah, he doesn't know dofen akuma. It's going to come out that there's an opinion here that doesn't know dofen akuma. They don't say it at all. They say there's going to be an opinion that Daled Amos is a shear of a schach pasel, no difference in the side and the middle. That's a very lenient opinion. They're going to hold that as long as the schach pasel is less than Daled Amos, 4 cubits, not 4 tefachim, it's also going to be kosher, even in the middle of the sukkah. That's what Rabbi's opinion is. Rabbi was surprised. He said he met this Rabban the Beirav, and they said 4 tefachim. He said, why? The Mishnah says Daled Amos. He told him only on the side, because dofen akuma. But Rabbi is taking the position against Rav and Shmuel that even in the middle, you're allowed to have schach pasel until 4 amos. Not that you're allowed to sit on them. He's not saying that it's a kosher sukkah, but it's still the sides. If you need to say, right, you can still, it's not considered a separation, and if you need that wall, you still can use that wall. We're not going to pass on that wall. The psak is where we stand until now, and we could chazer it again and again. That's the halacha. That 3 tefachim is of airspace is a problem, no difference the side or in the middle. But schach pasel, if it's on the side, it's good until Daled Amos. You can't use it. You can't sleep under there, of course, but you can still use the wall. And in the middle, even 4 tefachim is a separation already. But now we're going to continue the Gemara with Rabbi's opinion that he held that Daled Amos is the shear even in the middle. He's lenient and says that even in the middle of the sukkah, till you have a 4 space of 4 cubits, 4 amos, it's not possible. But Rabbi says, so Rabbi is going to be the opposing position. And I said to them, he's saying over the whole discussion he had with the Talmidim of Rav, Ma ilu ikas schach pasel pachos me'abot tefachim, va'avir pachos me'shlosha tefachim. What do you say if you have a sukkah that has schach and it has 2 problems? It has a little bit schach pasel and a little bit air. Each one is a minimum, less than the minimum. Means you have schach pasel less than 4 tefachim, kosher. Right next to it, you also have air less than 3 tefachim, also kosher. What would you say? Kosher. Sure, you have 2 problems. Each problem is not a problem. It's not enough schach pasel to make a problem. It's not enough air to make a problem. How about if you filled up the air space with pasel schach? Mali b'shput and mai. What if you filled up the airspace with metal sticks? What are you going to say? It's possible.
You say puzzle because then you're going to have too much. You're going to have more than 4.
Right. What's the problem?
My kashra.
What's the din? Kshera.
Oh, I see.
Mali b'shput and mai. What if you filled it up with metal sticks? What's the problem? What's the gemina din? Psula. How could that be? How could it be that schach pasel is going to be more severe than ear. Ear, of course, ear, he thinks, should be more stringent. And here you have a case that if it's ear, it's kosher. You fill it up with schach pasel, becomes pasel. How could that be? Ear should not be, which is ear, which is more chomer, cannot be more lenient than the schach pasel. The ear, which is chomer, that tweet already makes a problem. He's saying that it's kosher, and you fill it up with schach pasel that over there is lenient. They don't have to fourth fachim. It becomes pasel. How could that be? Something's not logical over here. That was his kasha. But they told that without instead of answering the kasha, they said, why are you looking at us? Why are we any worse than you? It's true, you hold that the share is going to be 4 amos. We hold 4 tvachim, you hold 4 amos. But the same kasha you can ask on yourself. And they said to me back, they said back to me, the amos schach pasel posel b'arba amos. According to you, too, who hold that schach pasel the share is 4 amos, you ask the same kasha. What if you have schach pasel less than 4 amos? Kosher. And next to it you have a space less than 3 tvachim of ear, kosher. And if you filled up that little space of air with schach pasel, now you have the dalet amos is pasel. So why are you looking at us? Well, look at yourself. What if you have less than 4 amos of schach pasel and next to it less than 3 tvachim of ear? What would you say? Kosher. But if you filled up the space with spits of metal, what's going to be the halacha? Psula, because now you have dalet amos. The same thing. How could you say that ear is more lenient than schach pasel? The ear is very stringent. That is possibly good tweet for him, and schach pasel is only pasel dalet amos. How could you say that the ear is more lenient? So why are you looking at us? It's a nice kasha. Why does that have to do with us? So he's going to explain why he thinks that it's only a kasha on them and not on him. I answered to them. I said to them, "Hi, Mai, what's the comparison? I'm much better." We're on your Zion Amud Beis now. We just turn the page. I say that the shear of dalet amos is a shear. That's the measurement. It means that Chazal said that the amount of schach pasel that's considered a problem is a shear. Like they always have shear on Mekzayas, like a Beitz or whatever. Here it's a shear of dalet amos. Not because Dafan Akuma. I don't know from Dafan Akuma. I just know about a shear of dalet amos. So then it's not a kasha to me that they don't combine to make one. That means that we had other cases like that. We just like Yuma. We talk about somebody eats and drinks on Yom Kippur. So eating has its share and drinking has its share. This is a Mulalugmov. This is a Koseves. And if you ate less than a share and drank less than a share, you don't put it together. You don't combine and say you ate more than a share. That's not a problem. If you have two things, each one has a different kind of a share. It's not surprising to me that they don't combine. And if you put it together, if you would put schach pasel into the airspace, so now what is a share? No problem. I can understand that. Only according to you, they have a problem. Mishlam, according to me, that has to do with the shear. If it's a shear or not. I love shirahu. It's not. It didn't make the measurement. It didn't meet the shear. Since the shiurim are not the same, so he's coming into a loose part. The Gemara is going to elaborate about this. That if you have two things that are not the same shear, they don't combine. Let's say we said the example of Yom Kippur, that eating is a koseves and drinking is a malol lugma. So they're two different shiurim, so they don't combine. If you have two things that the same would be the same shear, let's say two isurim, that both of them the shear is a kazayis. Even though both of them are different isurim, I don't know if I'm right what I'm going to say, but let's say chalev and nosar, two different isurim, but both of them the shear is a kazayis. So then it would combine. I'm not sure if I'm right halachically. Let's give you an example. So things that have different shiurim. So therefore, Allah can understand that they don't combine. So it wouldn't be a problem to me. It wouldn't be considered a wonder. How could it be that if you have less than dalet amos of schach pasel and less than 3 tvachim of airspace next to each other, it's kosher? And it's true.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Couldn't you just say on Yom Kippur, if it's a dry food or a solid food, and it's two different foods, they will combine because it's the same kazayas.
Koseves. That's
koseves. It's the same.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's the same koseves.
But over there, different foods is not a problem. I don't think that's an issue because it's all the issue of eating. But even if
I see.
Maybe your issue probably is also true that different types of food also combine. Could be. It's also a good example. But why am I asking according to you people who say that the share is 4 tvachim? On you I have a kasha. You. There doesn't say. Rashi points out this thing of 4 tvachim. It doesn't say in the Mishnah any place. There's no Mishnah about 4 tvachim by schach pasel. That's we figured it out. That schach pasel is a problem. How should it be a problem? So we know all over Shas that 4 tvachim is considered a significant amount. Chaim Dov said an example. Other examples also 4 tvachim is considered a significant amount. If it's only because of haflaga means separation. So then the separation it can't be that the airspace is going to be considered less of a separation than schach pasel. If you say 4 tefachim of schach pasel is a problem because it's too much of a separation, so if you have less than 4 tefachim of schach pasel and less than 3 tefachim of airspace next to each other, so then it's not considered a separation. That's why I'm asking according to you. According to me, it's a din in shiurim, it's a din in, not a din in separation, it's a din in a shear. So the two different shiurim, so I'm if they don't combine because each one is different shear. One is 4 tefachim, one is 3 tefachim, and the taka don't combine. But according to you, the svara that you say 4 tefachim is your own invention because it's considered a separation. Of course, airspace is a bigger separation than schach pasel. So how could it be that if you have less than 4 tefachim of schach pasel and less than 3 tefachim of airspace, it's kosher? And then when you put schach pasel, and then it becomes pasel. It can't be. That's why I'm only asking according to you. According to you, the research.
Then it extends, makes more of schach pasel.
It can't be schach pasel should be more stringent than airspace. If the void is because of separation, so you're telling me that if you have less than 4 tefachim of schach pasel and less than 3 tefachim of air, it's kosher. It's not separated. The two sides of the sukkah are not separated. And if you fill in the airspace with schach pasel, now it is separated. That doesn't make sense.
We say up to 4 amos.
We're going now according to the Rabban of the Beirav that say that the middle of the sukkah is 4 tefachim. We're going in the middle of the sukkah. But you people, the Rabban of the Beirav, that you say there's a reason why 4 tefachim is a problem is because it's a flaga that it's separated. Mali is spaled with schach pasel. Mali is spaled with schach pasel avir. What's the difference? What's the difference to me if it's separated with schach pasel alone and if it's separated with schach pasel and airspace? That it can't be that the airspace should make it more kosher. Okay, we finished that part. We're going to go a little. We ended for the kasha. The Gemara didn't answer the kasha, but we have this machlokes of how much is the problem of schach pasel in the middle of the sukkah. But now the Gemara still attacks Rabbah. Abaye said to Rabbah, you also should have to have a problem. Even you said that you're happy because this is a din in a shear. This is a dalaramas. This is 3 tefachim, 2 different shurim. There also should be a problem. The Gemara is going to say now a principle which the Gemara is going to elaborate on soon. That even if 2 things are 2 different shiurim, we said the example of Yom Kippur, eating and drinking is 2 different shiurim. If there'd be one case where there's a common denominator, that both of them have the same shiur. I don't have an example to say by Yom Kippur, but if theoretically there'd be a case where even eating would be also a malol lugma of, let's say such a thing, eating under certain circumstances it will be a similar shiur. So then the 2 shiurim do combine. It's only don't combine if they never have the same shiur. But if there's some case, some scenario where they have a common denominator, so then the 2 shiurim are the same. That's the principle the Gemara is going to say soon. So based on that, the Gemara says, Abaye said to Rabbah, Ulamar Nami, to the master, that's Rabbah. Rabbah was Abaye's Rebbe. Even according to you, it's true that in the big sukkah, there are 2 different shiurim. You think we're going now according to Rabbah that the shiur of schach pasel in the middle of the sukkah or the side of the sukkah is dalar amos. And the air is 3 tefachim. So it's 2 different shiurim. He's happy that they don't combine. But the sukkah in a small sukkah, if the whole sukkah is very small, you can't over there. The shiur is not going to be dalar amos. Means everybody agrees without saying. The Gemara says especially you have a small sukkah, they're not going to say this. How much you can't have dalar amos of less than dalar amos of schach pasel in a small sukkah. The whole sukkah is so small. It means if you have a small sukkah that the whole thing is 7 tefachim or a bit more, so then you're surely not allowed to have more than 3 tefachim of schach pasel. Because you can have, if you can have 4 tefachim of schach pasel, or even a little bit less, so then you have more schach pasel than you have schach kosher. So in a small sukkah, a minimum size sukkah, so then surely the share of schach pasel is also going to be only until 3 tefachim. So there's I found you a case where there's a common denominator of the share of schach pasel and air, both of them are 3 tefachim. It's even according to you that it's a lamdisha thing, that if you have 2 things that have 2 different shiurim, so then they don't combine to make a combination. But since there's a common denominator, that sometimes we do find that the share schach pasel is also up to 3 tefachim, so air and schach pasel should combine. That's Abaye's kasha. We'll see it inside. According to the master, also Rabbah, it's true that they don't have the same common share. In a big sukkah, the sukkah, but in a small sukkah, they do have a common share, and therefore they should combine always. The share of schach pasel and air should combine. And you're also agreeing that it's not. If you have less than 4 amos of schach pasel and less than 3 tefachim of air, it's kosher. Rabbi said to Abaye, the reason why in the small sukkah the share of the schach pasel is going to be only up to 3 tefachim is not because it's a share. It's not that over there the share is 3 tefachim. The less than the share of the sukkah. That's because you don't have enough sukkah. You don't have 4 tefachim. You don't even have 4 tefachim of schach kosher. That's a technicality in the sukkah. It's not because the share changed. The share didn't change. The share of schach pasel is dalet tefachim, but you don't have enough schach. So that's not a kasha. Dalit Tvachim in this case.
Oh, in this case.
The Gemara finished, but the Gemara is going to be, you can call the rest of the Gemara over here a tangent, a side point, parentheses that we spoke about, that this is so, this principle that if two things have the same shiur, then they combine. If they have two different shiur, they don't combine. And also we mentioned that if it has one common denominator, so then it does combine. The Gemara is going to talk about that a little bit. It's not really going to get to us. It's like a side point. Is your principle true that if you have two things that don't have the same shiur, so then they don't combine? There's a Mishnah that talks about Beituma that it seems that it does combine. But Tanan, we learned. We had mention of this a few days ago in passing. Here it says it out. A beged shlosha shlosha. A sak arba al arba. A or chamisha al chamisha. Mapas shisha al shisha. This is talking about the minimum size of a useful piece of something, garment, beged, cloth. So 3 by 3 tefachim. So we had a 3 by 3. The other day we had 3 by 3 as well. We talked about for a patch, for what do we say, by ani. If he has 3 by 3 as bows, a small little patch, that's still considered useful. Here it says 3 tefachim. Here Rashi says it's talking about medris, that it should be usable to get north to sit on, a chashava piece of material. So it says that according to how coarse the garment is, it's not chashav only if it's bigger. So beged, a garment, so the shear is 3 by 3 tefachim in order to be makabel tumah. It's susceptible to tumah. A sackcloth is more rough. It's made out of goat's hair, so it's rougher than cloth, and therefore it's only chashav if it's 4 by 4 tefachim. Or leather, it's more coarser, so then only if it's 5 by 5 tefachim. And mapos is a mat, like a wicker and things like that, so then only if it's 6 by 6 tefachim. So these are different shiurim. So far, according to our principle, they shouldn't be mistarek. They shouldn't be able to combine to become one, because each one is a different shear. Is that true? But Tanayallah, we learned in the Brisa that they do combine. A beged basak, comma, a sak or, comma, a or v'mapatz, the starfin. This is, we have the 4 kinds of materials, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 amid starif, 2 and 3 amid starif, 3 and 4 amid starif. Rashi says have to be a little similar in their consistency, that if it's too far away, they're not similar, so then they're not going to combine. But if you have a piece of a, I don't know what to call it, because you can't call it material because it's a combination. It has some material together with some sackcloth. So they're similar enough that they do combine. But beged and let's say cloth and leather are so different that they don't combine. And also the next thing is about marcellus, a mat, the mapats. That's only similar to or. It's not similar to sackcloth or to, and surely not to a garment. But anyway, what does it say? That if they're similar, a little bit similar in consistency, they are mistarid. Beged and sak are considered the same material enough to be able to combine. Sak and or is enough material, similar. Or in mapas is enough material. But anyway, what does it say?
What's the lesson? Or and what?
Mapas is a marcella, a mat. But what do you see? Mustaf and Zemzeh. You just said that these sodas, if they have different shurim, they're mitzvah. If you ever said, even though it's different shurim, it's still mitzvah. That's against your principle. The Gemara says that this has to do with the other point that we said, that if you find one place where it's a common denominator that have the same shear, that's enough to make them always combine. And over there, that's what the Gemara is going to say. Hasam Kiruktani time over there, that has to do with the reason that we explained over there. Rabbi Shimon Matam, Rabbi Shimon himself, the Tana, he explained why is it so? Why are the different kinds of mats, whatever, cloth, sackcloth, leather, mat, why are they mitzvah? Because they all have a common denominator that sometimes the share is going to be 1 tefach. What is that? If you took, you cut out of all these materials, tefach by tefach, it's tamei because it has tumas moshe. Tumas moshe would mean that sometimes it's enough for a seat. And I would just give an example. Let's say if there's going to be, let's say, a bicycle seat, something that's very small, something that a person just sits on. So even a tefach sometimes also is enough to be considered a base moshe. So since there's some common denominator that the share over there is going to be a tefach, if it's something, let's say used as a bigger material, then the share is 6, 5, 4. What do we have? 6, 5, and 4, and 3. Yeah. But if it's going to be, but if you do using it to make, so Makaseh Rashi doesn't mean that you cut it around neatly. So then even a tefach by tefach is enough. So since there's a common denominator sometimes, so then it also, they could be mitzvah. So it was giving a different application to what we learned, but the yesod is the same. 2 things that never have a common denominator in the shear is never the same denominator. If sometimes it has the same shear, even one case, then in all cases, you already demonstrate. Yes. And that's why the Gemara said by us that if you hold Dalad Amos as the shear of Slach Pasal and 3 Tefachim is the shear of ear, then I'm mitzvah. And the Gemara the kasha, but sometimes it's mistarif to have a common denominator by sukkah ketana. The Gemara said no, but it's not because of a shear. It's because you don't have enough schach kosher. You have less than 4 tefachim of schach kosher. So technically you don't have enough. It's not because of a shear. The Gemara says on this thing about Shimon, tefach lamay chazi. What is a tefach usable for? So I said something about a base moshe, but the Gemara says no, not exactly what I said. You could use it as a patch on a donkey. So it means on a donkey you have a donkey saddle or something like that. So then you want to put the place where you're sitting. They should have some a cloth over there. So then also it's still usable. It's usable for a patch on the blanket on top of the saddle on top of the hamor. All that what we have just to sum up what's to get to us to zoom out and to see what has relative relation, whatever, relativeness, whatever, to us is the halacha about how much schach pasel is a problem in a sukkah. Everybody agrees, this is unquestioned, nobody challenges that ear space is 3 tefachim. And less than 3 tefachim is kosher, 3 tefachim is a problem, no difference on the side and in the middle. But as far as schach pasel, everybody agrees that on the side the shear is going to be daled amas, but some say it's only because of dofen akuma, and in the middle it's going to be 4 tefachim, and others say that even in the middle is also daled amas. So far, we're gonna have further the same idea, but the question is who the names are. And so far we have that Rav and Shmuel both say that it's only because of dofen akuma. On the side of the sukkah is yaptul daled amas, but in the middle it's going to be pastel for 4 tefachim. And Rabbah was the one who said the other position that even in the middle of the sukkah is lenient and it's allowed to be until daled amas. The surah what he does it.
You can't sleep in.
How much?
You saying according to Rabbi.
According to Rabbi, you have till daled amas. Yeah, right. Surely under the sach you can't sleep over there, but it's not considered a hefsek in the sukkah. And the parts of the sukkah on the side, you still could use the wall that's far down, and the sukkah is not broken up. The sukkah is not broken up. The shear of schach is daled amas even in the middle. Means it's a very interesting thing that we had in the Masechta many times. Dofen akuma, the bent wall. Rabbi does dofen akuma. The reason why it's kosher is because less than daled amas is not a problem. Not only in the side, even in the middle. The whole svara of dofen akuma is only on the side. That's continuation of the wall. Right. But if you say that the shear of daled amas is even in the middle, that's nothing to do with dofen akuma. Right. So
same size, same shear, but the different.
Right, and it's even in the middle. It's not only on the side. Those who say that it's only in the middle, they say dofen akuma. In the middle, it's going to be 4 tefachim because that's considered a chashva separation, and it's now 2 sukkahs. But on the side, the special thing of dofen akuma. The one who says daled amas even in the middle, nothing to do with dofen akuma. The shear of daled schach pasel is daled amas.
Well, you have a nesa that's less than daled amas in the middle of your sukkah, and you can sleep under it.
I didn't follow that, but if we can come back.
You're saying that the shear is daled amas even in the middle of the sukkah.
Of schach pasel. Forget about this. And this is kasha schach pasha. We're talking about schach pasel, real schach pasel, metal. Metal in the middle of, you have a metal sheet of 3.5 amas. So Rabbi would say, don't sleep under there, but the sukkah is still a big sukkah, and you could use the walls that are on the far sides. Think about a real big sukkah, something like the Horva, a big sukkah. It doesn't separate it. The other Sforah said, no, that only on the side you're allowed to have until daled amas because of dofen akuma, but in the middle, once it's 4 tefachim, it's already split down the middle, and make sure you have 3 walls on the side where you are sitting, because the other side is not your sukkah. Because 4 tefachim, and that's what we pass. We're going to pass 4 tefachim in the middle. But the Gemara is going to again deal with what we just said. There is an opinion that says that even in the middle, you're allowed to have until daled amas. Not to sit under it, but that it doesn't divide the sukkah. But we just learned the surah Amrillah Shmaita B'Hai L'Shem.
But still hold from schach kosher is only.
Schach kosher. That's not.
Schach kosher until what? What's the shear?
Schach kosher is good. Schach kosher is consistent. I'm not sure what the question is, but.
What's the shear? What's the maximum shear that's schach kosher?
I'm not sure what the question is. Schach kosher is raised. And Nessa we're not in the sukkah of Nessa now. Not to keep out. Nessa is schach kosher with exeris tikra, not the subject over here. If I'm right, then it's not the subject. Here we're talking about how much schach pasel interferes with the sukkah. There's before you had a sukkah, even if it's schach kosher, it's a good wall, it's a good board. It grows from the ground. It's not a kabel tumah. It's not attached. There's a problem. Maybe people will think that I'm allowed to use the house because what's the difference between house and my sukkah? It doesn't seem to have relation. It's not. Doesn't seem to have relevance to our sukkah. The Gemara continues. What we just learned is Surah. Surah and Adah are 2 cities in Babel, and the above Gemara we just learned was the version of Surah. The Surah, the above version was Surah. And what do we say? That Rav and Shmuel both say that the shear of daled amas is only on the side because of dofen akuma, but in the middle is 4 tefachim. And Rabbah was the one who said that he thinks that is daled amas in the middle of the sukkah also. But Nardo had a different version. But Nardo Masnu, in Nardo they had the version. Amar Rabbi Yudah Shmuel, Schach Pasel Pasel Be'emtza Pasel Barba Tfachim, Menatzad Posel Barba Amos. Shmuel said the same as he said before. Shmuel doesn't change in the two versions. That Schach Pasel in the middle of the sukkah is any problem with 4 tfachim. Only on the side I allowed up until Dalet Amos. That's because of the Fanakuma. But Rav, he in this version, Rav is the one who says that Dalet Amos. He's lenient. In the first version, Rav and Shmuel didn't argue. Both of them were on the same team. Both of them said that in the middle of the sukkah is only 4 tfachim. Rabbah was the one, the next generation. He was the one who was saying that Dalet Amos is good even in the middle. But in this version, Rav himself is lenient and says you're allowed to have Dalet Amos in the middle of the sukkah. So it's only a question of names. It doesn't change the whole idea. There are two opinions, even in the first version. But here, Rav changes what Rav's opinion is. The Rav Amar, Bain Minatzad, Bain Be'emtza Barba Amos. That even in the middle, it's only a problem if it's 4 Amos.
That's the sheet that you said before.
Before I said in the name of Rabbah,
Right.
and Rav and Shmuel were on the same side, that they hold that only 4 Tvachim in the middle. And this version says that Rav is what Rabbah, what we said Rav on the, here there's no Rabbah, here there's Rav. And Rav says that you're allowed to have Schach Pasel in the middle until Dalet Amos. And just again to point out, he doesn't know the Dafan Akuma. It's not because of the Dafan Akuma, it's because the Shir is Dalet Amos.
Yeah.
That's to point out that the poskim have a question we paskin like, and I think the Ramban, he says we don't paskin like this because the whole Shas always says Dafan Akuma. According to this opinion, it's not no Dafan Akuma. The Shir of Schach Pasel is Dalet Amos. The fact that the Gemara says Dafan Akuma, that means that's only on the side. If it'll be in the middle, it'll be the 4th Tvachim, and that's how we paskin. But just to finish off the Gemara, Tanan. We had these Mishnayos before, and before the Gemara, the whole time was assuming that 4 Tvachim is a problem in the middle, and on the side is Dalet Amos. So we learned the Gemara before under that mindset, but now the Gemara is opening up a new opinion that maybe there's no share of 4 Tvachim at all. The share is always Dalet Amos. So we're going to be familiar with this, but we're looking at it from a different angle now. Tonight we learned in the Mishnah. This is the Mishnah back about Neser. We talk about the boards, and we wanted to know if they made a Gzeira on boards, wide boards. Maybe it looks like your house, and you're going to go into your house. That was what Sugita spoke about. It says over there, if you put a board, which is 4 Tvachim wide, so it's kosher, but don't sleep under it. So because the Gzeira sticker over says don't sleep under it, but it's but it's kosher. Now, Bishlam of the Rav,
It's not Dalet Amos.
oh, because not Dalet Amos. It is 4 Tvachim, and it's not Dalet Amos. So where do you get Dalet Amos from? Where's the share of Dalet Amos? Bishlam of the Rav, everyone's going to jump on the answer right away, but let's say the Gemara's kasha. Bishlam of the Rav, according to Rav, is very good because the share of Schach Pasel is Dalet Amos. So it is considered Schach Pasel, even though it's a kosher board, but they gave a din of a Neser Schach Pasel because of the Chash Gzeira Tikra. And what does it mean that you can sleep under it? Because you have till Dalet Amos. Don't sleep under it, but it's kosher. The sukkah is still kosher. And what does it mean? Both in the middle and on the side, because the share is Dalet Amos. But if you have the Shmuel, the Amar, Be'emtza Ba'aba, a Mike Shera, if the middle of the sukkah, even 4 times the rum, so what's going to be the case that it's kosher? It says it's kosher, but don't sleep under it. It's not kosher anymore because the 4th Tvachim made a problem. So the obvious answer is, they're not sound. Okay, everyone agrees on the side you have Dalet Amos. The Gemara thought that even in the middle. And the Gemara took it for granted. Before, the Gemara took for granted this difference, that only on the side is Dalet Amos, in the middle is 4 Tvachim. But here, the Gemara opened up. The Rav is much better because he can say, even talking about the middle of the sukkah. But the Rav Shmuel has no problem, so it's on the side of the sukkah. Tashma, also familiar what we had. Shnei Zdinim Mistarfin, Shnei Sarim Mistarfin. Tanakama says that there's no Gzeira Tikra, and therefore, if you have two strips of material that are Schach Pasel, each one is 2 Tvachim, let's say, some Mistarfin to become 4 Tvachim. Or I said 4 Tvachim. Maybe I should say Dalet Amos, but it's Mistarf to become a problem. But Shnei Sarim Mistarfin, even though there's a problem of a board, but if it's half boards, half the size, then I'm Mistarf because each one is kosher. Small boards, not a problem. Big boards are a problem. So if you have 2 small boards, we don't say 2 small boards equals 1 big board. So it's kosher. What? Right. But Meir says no, that boards are a problem, which we had in the Mishnah. Meir's boards are a problem, and therefore it's just as big. But what does it mean that it's Mistarif? Mistarif to what? Again, the Gemara says the same thing as before. It has to be Mistarif to, we're going now, that's the question now. If the boards are 4 Tvachim or less than 4 Tvachim, we had the Machokas before a couple of pages ago, that Shmuel said there's an opinion that even between 3 and 4 Tvachim is also considered wide boards. But Rav said, I think, that Rav said that only if it's 4 Tvachim wide it's a problem. So the same scenario used before. Rav, if Rav, we had 2 Lashonos of Rav, well, we just had in the Gemara today, the Surah Nardo, what does Rav hold? Is schach pasel in the middle of the sukkah, is there a problem if it's less than Dalet Amos? So the first lesson said, yes, it's only good till 4 Tvachim. Second lesson said it's good till Dalet Amos. Here it talks about boards being with starving. With starve to what? It must be Dalet Amos. If you hold that even in the middle, it's 4 Amos, so I'm Mustaf and Lav Amos, that each board is Rav over there holds that it's only problem if it's 4 Tvachim. So then you have boards that are 4 Tvachim and then Mustaf to Dalet Amos. Ela l'chach lishna dama Rav be'emtza be'arba 4 Tvachim. What's the, if you hold that in the middle, schach pasel is very problem. If it's 4 tvachim, so what does that stop over here? That 2 boards, they must start. What does it mean 2 boards, they must start? If each board is only 4 tvachim, it's already 4 tvachim. If each board is 4 tvachim, then it's possible, not because of 2 boards. 1 board alone is a problem, because it's already 4 tvachim. Either less mudalid, if it's not 4 tvachim each board, then Rav holds that as kosher. Can't have almond in it. And the one says obvious answer. La'olam. The Isbuhu Arba, each one is 4 Tvachim, and everyone's agreeing the whole time that on the side is Dalet Amos. So the Gemara has no problem with this. And the Gemara before learned the same way without saying even that the only problem is when it's on the side. We're in the middle of the Gemara still, but we're stopping here. The Gemara continues more proofs. Just to sum up what we had tonight, the principles are very simple. That ear space is a problem, 3 Tvachim, both on the side and in the middle. And by Schach Pasel in the side, surely the share is Dalet Amos. But some say it's only because of Dofen Akuma. But if it be in the middle, then the shir will be 4 Tvachim because 4 Tvachim is a significant separation. But some hold that the shir of Schach Pasel is Dalet Amos, and there's no difference on the side and in the middle. Even on the middle, it's kosher less than Dalet Amos. And the reason why it's kosher is not because of Dofen Akuma, because the shir is Dalet Amos. And the Gemara went into the issue about being with Starik. If you have less than a share of Schach Pasel, less than a share of ear, how could it be that ear is going to be more lenient than Schach Pasel? We didn't finish, but the Maisha does to say the Allah already. We pass him like that ear is a problem 3 Tvachim always, and by Schach Pasel on the side, ear, and Schach Pasel on the side is until Dalet Amos, beloved, and the ears and Schach Pasel on the side is until Dalet Amos, because Dofen Akuma, in the middle is ready 4 Tvachim is a problem. As far as being with Stav, the Gemara Kasha, that the Gemara didn't answer, that if you have less than 4 Tvachim of Schach Pasel or less than 3 Tvachim of ear space, it's kosher, and if you fill it in with Schach Pasel, it became Pasel. Right. And the Gemara said, how could it be? And the Gemara didn't answer. But the Ma'aseh supposed can go, that's the way it is. And they say, as far as to explain why it should be, it's different. Just end off with a fascinating treat. How do you say, like a cherry or something like that? There's a very interesting chap that the post can say. What if you had 4 Tvachim of Schach Pasel? You can make it kosher by taking away some Schach Pasel and making it into ear. And now you're kosher again. The same way the Gemara said the other way, that if you have Schach Pasel less than 4 Tvachim and less than 3 Tvachim, if you add, it made it Pasel. And the Gemara said that's the way it is. So too, you can do it the other way. You have more than 4 Tvachim or more of Schach Pasel, so you can take it away, you made it into ear, and now it's kosher. It sounds ironic, but that's the way it is. That if you have less than 4 Tvachim of Schach Pasel, less than 3 Tvachim of ear, it's kosher.
So Rebbe, what you're saying is, while Mosif is Goreya, here Goreya is Mosif.
Very nice, very nice. Very nice. Sometimes you can take away and it's considered like you're adding. Very good.
Yeah. Well.
Okay. Yashikach, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shavuot Tov.
Thank you. Shavuot Tov.
How could it be defined iPhone?
That is a father and a son.
Oh.
This is Ari Fine. He's here in Eretz Yisrael. Also, Dr. Fine is also supposed to arrive. Maybe he arrived already. I don't know.
We want to meet Dr. Fine.
Yes, we have to make a siyum or masiba, and we'll get all together.
My
Yes.
wife